Hello, kings and queens. Waiting to connect with Nastassia. So excited for this conversation. It is going to be a vibe. Hey, Nastassia. Come on down.
See if we connected with her.
Hi.
Hi. Wait, sis, I feel like my bun is super big. It's not even in the shot. Wait.
You gotta adjust the camera.
Just a second. Your hair looks good.
Yeah.
You can see me, right?
Yes.
Woo! Look fabulous.
Thank you too. Glowing.
Glow, baby, glow. World up. Hello, kings and queens. Happy Tuesday. As always, we give thanks for another day. And welcome to Motivational Moore Virtual Leaders. I'm so excited for this conversation. In this series, what we're going to really do is highlight influential leaders that are using their voice to impact the world. So today, we're going to talk about something that is very important, right, Nastassia? It's self-doubt. Okay, self-doubt is habits that we face that can affect our capabilities, our self-worth, the way that we feel about ourselves, and so much more. So today, we're going to be joined by Motivational Moore leader, the brilliance and the talented. I'm talking about this woman is literally my soul sister. She is all. She's a creative writer. She is a metaphysician. She is a poet. She's a serial entrepreneur. The one and only beautiful, gifted Nastassia Aniceta. How are you, queen?
Solid, sis. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I am so excited for this conversation. Self-doubt is something that we all face. And overcoming that self-doubt is so hard. So today we're going to have a conversation and we need your expertise. We need your opinions to really give us that knowledge because you are a woman of knowledge. I'm telling you, your videos are such an inspiration. You know, you and I have just profound reasoning. So let's get right into it. Self-doubt. When it comes to the personal component, how does self-doubt affect this aspect of self?
Self-doubt affects the personal aspect of self in a few areas, actually, when it comes down to how we show up for ourselves, how we take care of ourselves, the negative self-talk that we have with ourselves, and that also includes not meeting ourselves where we're at. Yeah. So in the areas where it relates to how we interact with our presence, procrastination, when we're showing up, let's say 50%, when we can be showing up 100% in an area of our development because of the doubt that we're having that's being reinstated based on conditional application of how people project their ideals on us and what we allow that to mean for ourselves. That's what really embeds itself as our self-talk. And it can either be positive or negative. And when we're vibing from a place of self-doubt, it's always coming from a place of negativity. So it's a negative self-talk reaction that can trigger you whenever you feel that pressure to get something done. You procrastinate, or you judge yourself or become hypercritical when you're not meeting yourself where you're at, in that sense as well.
And I love the fact that you talked about that. So how can we use radical, and I have to say this, kings and queens, because sometimes in life we have to really step into that radical notion of self. So how do we use radical self-belief to overcome self-doubt in the personal connection?
That's a great question. In the personal aspect of self, radical self-belief helps when you apply that to build habits that are associated with self-respect, self-compassion, self-worth, self-care, self-acceptance, and also giving yourself grace, understanding that everything is a practice. And you're not gonna learn everything all at once. You're not gonna be perfect at anything. Perfectionism is an illusion, and most of the times when we're holding back, it's because we're expecting it, and I'm guilty of that myself. It's because we're expecting a certain caliber, we're expecting a certain result, and when we feel like it's going to be below that bar, we end up either going to procrastinate or just not doing it at all and postponing. And there's no better medicine for self-doubt than just action sometimes.
Yes. And I love the fact that you talked about the self-compassion, because one of the hardest journeys, I always say this in this journey of life, is really discovering yourself and taking that time to really honor self. And as we're in this journey, especially when it comes to external forces, people or situations or even ourselves are telling us, oh, we should do this or we should do that or boom, boom. But when you have self-compassion with that, it makes the journey easier, and allowing yourself to have grace is essential when it comes to your process, because everyone's process is different, but we're always trying to compare, and you know what I mean? And it really doesn't exist, because you can't be me and I can't be you. So why even spend that energy even worrying about comparing yourself when it's a complete illusion?
Yeah. And even in the end, regardless of what it is, even times when we're not allowing ourselves to show up in the fullness of our capacity, it's because we sometimes let failure become a destination other than a passage or just another stop on the path of where we're headed. And because of that, we sometimes forget that we can always recreate ourselves regardless of whatever transpired. Whenever we stumble, you can get up every day and choose to become a new you if you want to. You can get up the next hour and decide to become a new you if you want to. You can create a comeback from any setback.
Yes. But wait, you know your words are weapons, okay? They're weapons of strength. Can you say that again, because it's so important? You can come back from any setback. Now, there are kings and queens who are watching this live right now that needed this message. And a lot of times in life, when things happen or just situations, we feel like we cannot come back. But there is a power in all of us that no matter what we face in this journey of life, when you tap into the personal components of self, okay? Let me say that again. When you tap into the personal component of self, kings and queens, you are able to do amazing things. Do not allow any situation that you are going through, that you went through, to define you. Because at the end of the day, we come from God. Okay. And this segues me into my next section, which is spirituality. You know, I'm all about spirituality. And how does self-doubt affect our spiritual aspect of self?
Self-doubt definitely shows up in the spiritual aspect of self as it relates to not trusting our existence, the reason for that, our uniqueness, the ideal blueprint that we can have on this world based on having faith in why we're here, our purpose, our dreams, our vision, the reason for our mission, along the lines of also just believing that everything that's happening is happening for the benefit of your good, regardless of, I don't know if you guys read or listened to the audiobook for The Alchemist, but there's a line in there that always registered with me, and it is, the universe is always conspiring for your highest purpose. Right? That's not, don't quote me on that, but that's definitely along the lines of what it says in the book. And whether it's good or bad, it is for your favor. Sometimes we tend to allow a negative or a dark or a dim sector of our life to keep us stagnant, and we stay there and we lose faith and we lose hope, and that doubt can move from it being internal to being externally projected on what the universe has in our favor, what the Almighty ordained for us to be while we're here. And in that sense, that's when the doubt can allow you to cripple your spiritual self and also just cause misalignment when it relates to the frequencies that you want to exude to get what you need to attract. So in return, it's almost like you're sabotaging what you actually want, because by focusing on what you lack, then you also get it more of what you lack, as opposed to shifting to what exactly you want, or just pulling that to you by your own magnetic awareness. So yeah.
And focusing on what you don't have is the essence of not walking in your divine light with faith. Because kings and queens, if you understand that each and every one of us has a purpose in this journey of life, and be bold enough to walk into that purpose, you will not lack. And that is why it's essential to walk by faith. There's so many things in life we will not understand beyond this physical dimension, but this is just the physical world. This is just one world. So you can't attach your worth to the physical when we come from the spiritual, right? And that takes a lot of courage in looking within yourself. And the answers, coming back to the spiritual component, are always found within. So even tapping into your spirituality to develop radical self-belief is essential. How do we do that? There are several ways that we can do that. And one of those things that I like to talk about is that commitment to your highest self, developing radical faith. I'm telling you, that same faith moves mountains is really, really true, because there's only so much that we can do physically. So no matter what sector you choose to pray on or whatever, it's all the same thing. We just have different ways of showing it, right? Tap into your faith. I'm telling you, this is from personal experience in my life. I've learned to develop my faith, because there's been so many times that people would tell me, I can't do this. You can't do this. I don't think it's going to happen. Try to tear down my dreams. And a lot of times they're just projecting from their own insecurities, or they don't have that awareness, or it's not their dream. So regardless, I had to develop, radical faith and say, you know what, Char, I have to show up for myself. And that's the thing, kings and queens, you got to learn to show up for yourself, because you come from God. Tap into your faith. And Nastassia, do you have anything else to share for that gem on how do we really build our, radical self-belief through spirituality?
I love what you said, and I agree with it 100%. And to add to that, applying gratitude as a daily practice in and out will definitely help with that. So in times when your faith is dim, remembering what you have survived already, your journey so far, because you have conquered any type of obstacle that has been in your path so far. That's why you're here. Yes. And for that purpose alone, just applying gratitude can just shift the energetical vibration that you're currently in that space. Because we're all gonna lose faith from time to time. Yeah. But when you remember what you've survived so far, and also principles that I adhere to and would recommend is to just understand the universal laws. Yeah. That will help with patience, because, and I'm still learning that, because sometimes we do want things to just happen overnight. We think, okay, we're putting effort right here, so we're supposed to just see the result that we're expecting. When in real life, the law of gestation means that you cannot plant the seed today and get the fruit tomorrow. You have to allow it to go through its process of nurturing, go through its process of becoming just like you are also evolving. Things take time. And in the meanwhile, use the refuge of understanding the universal law of compensation, mean you will get rewarded for whatever you put out. That is just cause and effect.
Absolutely. And it's the power of energy. Whatever you put out, you get back. So always vibrate on that alignment will always help you when it comes to your overall journey. And I love the fact that you talked about planting the seed. When I spend a lot of time in nature, that's part of our soul fuel. And that I love to spend time in nature because it keeps me balanced and centered. But I look at the trees, I look at the flowers, and I say, wow, this was once a little seed. Just like us, we were once a seed, literally. You know what I mean? So nurturing that and allowing yourself to go through your process of life is beautiful. And that's a part of spirituality, realizing that everything has a season. And whenever you are going through in that season, what are you supposed to learn in that season? What are you supposed to learn from even this IG live with Nastassia and I? What is the wisdom that you need to expand your consciousness and to anchor in self? and to know what you carry. Very, very powerful. And the cosmos is something that you are really firm on. Let's talk about that a little bit.
In relation to just having and maintaining a connection with the Almighty, I do think understanding the layers of just how different principalities work in the universe helps with that. It helps to maintain it, because there's times when we're just not going to understand everything that's happening, or even can just be okay with knowing that we don't know anything. And there is just an unknown that's always going to be an element of the future that we just kind of have to surrender to. And I do think that having an understanding of the universal laws and applying them as needs be, 14 main universal laws that we can use always to just apply whenever we're having spiritual conflicts internally. And I do believe that they help to ground us with the tenets of self-belief.
So let me ask you this deep question, Queen Nastassia, right? I'm all about energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there is someone who is watching this live right now, okay, that is losing faith. They've been through things that we cannot even imagine. They're trying to hold on to their faith. They're losing it. What advice can you give to encourage them to keep going on their journey, especially as somebody who has that metaphysician background? What is your expertise on that?
Even beyond the metaphysical advice that I would provide, just from my own experience, definitely remember that.
Miracle, thank you. I felt it.
Definitely remember that we're only here for a limited time. We're only here for a limited time. Even though there are times when we can see people going through a better phase than us, there's always people going through something worse. And sometimes that's not enough of a crutch for us to bank on, but it does help to remember that this is only temporary. We are here in a temporal state. This is a temporal plane. It is run by emotions. Obviously, it's not the essence of who we are as spirits having this human experience. But just remembering that right now, I am God existing as Nastassia. You are God existing as Chardelle. Everybody on this live is God existing as themselves. Right? Yeah. So just understanding that we have that power to create whatever reality that we want, because the realities that we have so far are all assigned to the value of emotional wealth that we put on it. The memories that matter to us is because of the emotional impact it had at the time when it was happening, right? So if you want to shift, always go to a balance of the celestial level of where you need to be looking at things along with the emotional. And it helps. Practicing it helps, and it is a practice. Theoretically, it's always going to be easier said than done, but the practical comes with you practicing it, and you will become a practitioner of that. I am still in training of becoming a full and master practitioner of that. So it helps to just shift into knowing what this emotional plane entails, how it works, and we all have improvement in emotional intelligence that we can step into, myself included. And we just have to allow ourselves to go through that process of becoming a butterfly. You can become either a butterfly or a moth. Yes. The same cocoon that bring you the butterfly, bring you the moth. The caterpillars don't always turn in butterflies, and it depends on how they're handling that pressure. Depends on how they're handling that dis-ease and discomfort that's coming with the struggle that's applied or assigned to their greatness.
You are speaking so much wisdom and knowledge, and thank you so much for your divine presence, because this can only come from God. You are such a miracle worker in your light. So we touched on the notion of personal and spiritual, on how to use radical self-belief to overcome self-doubt. Self-doubt is something that we all face, but the good news is that we can really change these limiting beliefs through subconscious programming. So let's talk about the interpersonal component. How does having self-doubt, okay? And we know this one is a deep one. Having self-doubt affect us, affect our aspect of self when it comes to the interpersonal connection?
For interpersonal, Shar, I would definitely say that the biggest is how doubt allows us to stay in a loop of comparison sometimes.
Comparison.
Definitely with others. We can have the grandest idea. We can think of an amazing vision that we want to manifest. And then we say, okay, let me go research. Let me go and look online. And you come online and you just kind of just depress you or something. You end up wanting to stick a about turn because you're looking and comparing your start to somebody else's middle or somebody else's ending or wherever they are in their established part of their manifestation, and we start to devalue the ideas that we have and the impact that it might have. And for a lot of us, it's about the impact that we want to leave, the legacy, whether it be financial or just on a notion of having some type of substance left back to carry on your name. And comparison definitely is one of the main ones. Definitely also people pleasing.
Oh yes, people pleasing.
Self-doubt can, when you doubt yourself, you can tend to want to have that validation, acknowledgement, and just overall like from people. That is something that means a lot to you, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. However, it always is coming from a place where a childhood trauma allowed that imprint to stay on you, where you thought that you needed to, because most of us are raised not with conditional love. We have conditions applied. If we don't do this, then we're not good. If we don't do that, then we're not the best daughter, the best son, the best whatever, right? So there's always that conditions applied to the love that we'll get, and we'll get punishment based on that. So people pleasing started in the home, and it just ends up projecting itself onward, whether in school, in the workplace, in our adult life. If you're not mindful, you will not say no when you should be saying no. My favorite response to things when I am not.
Oh, I love
yeah, I know you know.
So guys, let me just tell you something about this queen. Me and Nastassia met literally via IG, and we became literally soul sisters. And I learned so much from her wisdom. One of the things that she uses, and this is big woman energy right here. She literally says, I'm not energetically available. And when she told me that, like, Shar, you know, certain people have to tell them I'm not energetically available, I said, whoa. I'm not energetically available. What kind of notion is this? This is some real stuff. I was like, what? I'm not energetically available. And I said, you know,
yes, ma'am.
Because it takes so much energy to do that. That is honoring your crown and also understanding your boundaries. Because if you do not develop boundaries, as somebody who is working on establishing boundaries, people will try to shift you in every direction.
Yep.
You know, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what about myself? Because what's happening unconsciously, you're pouring out to the world, but when it comes to yourself, you might be, oh my gosh, you're not doing the things that you need to do for yourself. So kings and queens, do not be afraid to say, I'm not energetically available from this.
Exactly.
Okay. Very, very important. If you feel like sometimes you got to fall back to honor self, do it. Because nobody is going to be there for you like you be there for yourself ultimately. So learning this notion of having radical self-belief is very critical in this journey of life. Because what I've realized is, and you can't even blame people, sometimes we want somebody to save us, or we want somebody to help us, or somebody to support our idea. And guess what? They're just not going to do it. You know, so you can sit in despair, or you can say, you know what? I am going to start showing up for myself. And I'm also going to create the boundaries and start to learn how to develop that love within. And that also brings me to our next part on how can radical self-belief be used to combat this is through internal validation.
Mm-hmm.
Internal validation. Be willing to find that validation within yourself.
Yeah.
Look outwards for approval. Another hard thing, right, in a world that conditions us to be like that, since we are children. If you think about it, like, let's say a child did something good, or, you know, whatever they're doing, their parents are like, yes, good job, you're awesome. Not even just saying, good job, you're awesome for your own existence. That should be fine enough. But it's
Right.
like something, then you're awesome. So these creates mental blocks in us that unconsciously we do things and we're not even realize. So when you develop internal validation within yourself and realize I am whole, let me really work on my journey self versus self, you're good. Because the moment you look externally, you're doomed, because you can't be anything but self. So learning to become your highest authentic self, and that's also authenticity. Don't you agree?
It has to be authenticity 100%, because when you're staying authentic to yourself, you won't abide to the people-pleasing tendencies, because you'll be abiding with your authenticity first. And that also ties into you not playing it small. I'm guilty of that as well, where I need to always remind myself, no, don't play it, because sometimes playing it safe can be you playing it small.
Absolutely.
And you know, there's nothing that thrives in comfort zone, nothing that evolves in comfort zone. So that space of comparison as well, we should always be trying to compete with ourselves, always trying to move into a direction of it being onward, upward, forward for our own development, regardless of whatever anybody else wants to do, because again, nobody else can do that personal work on yourself but you, for you.
Yeah. And, you know, going back to reprogramming our subconscious mind, you know, through these things is so important, because no matter what you went through, okay, no matter what you went through in this journey of life, you can reprogram your subconscious mind. It's very important. Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you so much. I thank you so much for that, Wealthy. I appreciate it. The comments are just so lovely, because people need to hear this information, which is so essential. And, you know, authenticity, very important. Like you said, internal validation in developing boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn, I don't know if you're guilty of this, but I had to learn how to say no. Literally, N-O. And if you think about it, it's such a small word. No. It took me time to learn how to say no. Okay? Learn to say no. And the thing is, being on my own soul journey, my internal journey, my healing journey, I've realized the importance of just really establishing boundaries on my mindset, because this mind right here is so beyond powerful. You can literally reprogram it to do almost anything, you know? So learning the importance of that is so important. Now let's get on to this topic, which is very important. How does self-doubt affect our social aspect of self? Big one there, social aspect.
Yeah. The first time I actually remember having a conversation on just the various aspects of self, be it personal, interpersonal, spiritual, and social came up, I remember it being like, wait, self-doubt in that area, and it actually does in probably one of the biggest ways that we can think of as it relates to creating societal change. So many times we think that it's just little on me. How can I impact the system? How can I impact change? How can I make a difference? And just that area of doubt that we have on the social aspect of self is what allows a lot of the brokenness that's in the system, which is created that way by design, to be honest, to continuously perpetuate through generations after generations after generations. Because people think, well, what's my march going to do? What's my vote going to do? What's my signing of that petition going to do? it's not going to change anything. So they just sit back and allow it to continue, regardless of the fact that there's children that are continuously being born every day, and they're going to be the inheritor. They're going to inherit anything that we're leaving behind. And just for that purpose alone, even if it doesn't cause an immediate change, you cannot underestimate the magnitude of just planting that seed. It can take roots 20 years later. You still need to acknowledge that it was planted 20 years ago. So the main way how self-belief allows you to show up and combat this doubt where social is concerned is to be the change that you want to be.
So also what you're saying is, for those kings and queens out there who do want to make a difference in society, use your voice. Don't be intimidated by the system that was already created, because you could be that person who creates the change. And if you look at a great leader who made a difference in society, and here at Motivational Moore Leaders, that's what we take pride in doing. People like you, those visionaries that are impacting their worlds with their unique and divine gifts. We need you. We need the light workers. We need the artists. We need the entrepreneurs. We need the educators. We need the custodians. We need everyone, because each and every one of us are blessed with a divine gift that can impact our world on the social dimension. So that's very important that you talked on that. Thank you so much for that. So thank you so much. This conversation was so needed, because self-doubt is so real, and developing that radical self-belief is so important. And you are our first leader, Motivational Moore leader.
Honored. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Happy to be trailblazing this with you as well. Thank you, sis.
Because you are truly using your divine gifts to impact the world. And we are so honored to be in your presence with your lights, your wisdom, and your immense grace. So we thank you for that. I really, really appreciate that. It's such an honor. So before we close out this conversation, I've been reading a lot about neuroscience, and I am just so fascinated by neuroscience. So what mental hacks, those neural tips that we can use to boost our self-belief?
There's a selective group. There's many, but there's a selective group that I personally abide by, and they all fall under that umbrella for neuroscience. But I would say the most impactful for me, because metaphysics is a tenet of philosophy in itself, of just beyond the knowing, beyond the physical. And I think neurophilosophy helps 100% with just understanding how the brain itself, because the mind is something that is not, it's not physical, you understand, but it is an element of the brain which is actually physical, and just seeing it as a bridge between what is physical and what is not, understanding that it is just a level of consciousness. It is an auric field that is being applied to how we're creating belief systems and actual programmings and applying them to our reality. That is what neurophilosophy is about. So understanding how that works and using different aspects of that in relation to just your overall continuous unbecoming, rebecoming, and unlearning and reprogramming of self. Definitely number one. Number two, neuropsychology. And that for me is probably the heaviest, because that's where you get into a lot of the shadow work. And that's, to me, neuropsychology helps a lot with helping to regulate your nervous system. And that's where we can get.
For those who don't know, okay, what is shadow work?
So our shadows are basically the versions of ourselves that are almost crystallized by an actual trauma. So it is how we reacted to a space in time where we felt pain. So I know, like for me, some of the shadows that I had to work on was how I was responding to emotional triggers. If I am being made to feel like I'm less than or not worth it or just overall not good enough. As a child, the response to that, because you don't have the level or just even the capacity of emotional intelligence that you need to have, might be just to kind of shut down, or it might be to have a hissy fit and shout and yell and scream and even probably want to actually fight the person. But and it ends up being a shadow. It can help you to survive, but it never ever is aligned with who you need to be to thrive. So most of the times you can release it, and a lot of the times, personally, I prefer transmuting. I like making friends with my shadows and actually transmuting them, and that's the shadow work part of just light work in general.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. You talked about making friends with your shadows, because learning your all aspects of yourself is the only way to know yourself. And we all have so many different dimensions that are in us based on our upbringing, our trauma, our joy situations. So depending on the emotion can bring out a different elevation in us.
Exactly.
So learning that even through the dark thoughts or the stuff that you went through, being open to it, not in a bad way, but in a way of like, okay, I went through this, but at the same time, I'm not going to allow this to define me, you know, and is real growth, right? I read a saying in a fortune cookie. This was like was it 2 days ago? And they said, if you understand everything, you're not learning. I'm going to say that again. If you understand everything, you're not learning.
A word.
That's a word. And in this journey of life, at the end of the day, we want to be able to say we learned and applied the knowledge that we learned. Because consuming knowledge is one thing. Applying knowledge is the other. So I know a lot of people who are watching this right now, the gems are popping. I'm getting gems. I'm getting revelations. This is the energy. Absolutely, Sam, this is the revelations that are coming. Okay, these are the revelations. But we can't just, okay, these are great information. We have to apply it in our everyday lives. And that is a process. So even if you take one gem from this conversation and say, I'm going to use it in my life, that's very important. And you, Nastassia, you are just a serial entrepreneur. And we really have to just talk about the wonderful works that you're doing with your business. No, it's not easy. Okay. It's not easy.
But it's not impossible.
Is never, absolutely. Self-growth is really critical in this journey of life. Absolutely. So let's talk about your 3 businesses that you have going on. Let's start with Evolvyx.
Okay, so Evolvyx is my multi-art centric productions, communications, and consulting company. And right now we're focusing on creative consulting. It's also the home of Evolvyx podcast, as you know. And we speak on both personal and business development on that show. And the area of it is just to really promote creative consciousness. That's basically it, yeah.
Yes, and I know, I'm putting you on the spot. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But I know you are a bad poet. So is there any way that you can bless us with one of your poems right now? Or even, yes, come on.
Where I come from?
Let's go.
So poetry dropping now, man.
Come on, let's go. Because this queen is a phenomenal poet. So you know I'm all about poetry. It would be such an honor for you to share one of your works in Motivational Moore Leaders' first discussion, Overcoming Self-Doubt Through Radical Self-Belief.
I'll be honored to. Thank you. All right, Char. I will. This piece is called Her Story Goes.
Okay.
Actually, what?
I just got to introduce you. We got Nastassia Aniceta.
This girl.
Nastassia Aniceta is about to drop one of her poems live, okay, on Motivational Moore Leaders. Kings and queens, get ready. The knowledge, the creativity is about to flow. Nastassia, take it away.
Thank you, queen. She rises. Phoenixing above and against the heaviest of odds, she soars. Mastering the art of flipping pain into power, she grows. You don't know that mighty knack for snatching the highs from the lows. The alchemic hijack commanded her to conquer anxiety and depression without using Prozac. Her path kept claiming her until she finally claimed it back, removing roadblocks and dead ends like their mobile cul-de-sacs. So she frets about no one's lane because she's on her own damn track. solid sun, Capricorn, moon, Virgo, Libra rising, zodiac, based on whichever almanac. You catch the vibe? Effortless panache, shinani for partner style. Set smooth sailing on tsunami level tides and flex only with energies that's ethereally prescribed.
Come on.
Should I go the bare minimum to emit the frequency of equilibrium? Cause no foe can oppose what the divine creator chose. Sealer, good over evil. From all adversities, she rose. And she'll continue to. Cause that's how her story goes.
Woo! That's love how it speaks. Thank you.
You're something else, Queen.
Woo! But I mean, I could feel the spirit, I can feel the soul, and this is the thing. My kings and queens who are artists out there, do not be afraid to use your immaculate gifts, because you using your gifts and operating it and putting it out to the world literally heal people. Okay, that's the power of creativity. Everything we see was once a thought. So your creations are so important, and it is so amazing, Nastassia, that you created a business honoring that, because we need it. Absolutely. I see the hearts going. We needed that fuel right now. That was amazing. And that's just one of your many businesses, which is phenomenal.
Sure, you say many like I'm out here, Jeff Bezos or something.
3 businesses. 1, 2, 3. So let's talk about her, which I am a proud brand ambassador for.
Yes, our very favorite ever, babe. So EvHer Organics is a eco-conscious beauty and wellness brand. We offer plant-based handmade skincare along with CBD and health supplements. And we also offer well-being essentials like bath salts and candles, and they're all eco-friendly, cruelty-free, and sustainable products. And that is definitely the movement that I rock with. I've always been a champion for eco self-care. So I'm just so proud to be able to serve offering products that align with a movement that I believe in.
Yes, and a movement, we can't forget your nonprofit organization, one by many, that are doing such great works needed for humanity. And at Motivational Moore, we're a multimedia and communications company elevating the human consciousness. It's always a pleasure to align ourselves with thought-provoking creatives, visionaries, influencers that want to make a difference to society. Okay? This thing is beyond us. Okay, and Nastassia, you're doing it with your nonprofit. Tell us about it.
Okay, so one by many is it's actually probably the heart of where I actually resonate with the most, and it is a grassroots nonprofit focusing on youth advocacy program, community outreach, and civil and human rights initiative. Right now, we're focusing on just creating proposals and grants for a few other nonprofit organizations that I work with personally. And we're partnering currently with the Long Island the Homeless Coalition of Long Island. And we just wrapped up a contract with Big Brothers Big Sisters, just doing some outreach with them for children in shelter. And now we're just working with the coalition to also help with creating drives and fundraisers for other homeless individuals in New York that need help, regardless of it being financial. Sometimes it is just simply helping them to apply for jobs, helping them to apply for housing, helping them to apply for whatever state or federal benefits that can help them get on their feet. So that's where we're focusing on right now. But
amazing. Dynamic. Thank you so much for really being a humanitarian and giving back to society. So where can we follow you? Obviously on Instagram, but your websites as well.
I can be found on Instagram at Nastassia Aniceta. And for my branches of businesses, there are EvHer Organics, at Evolvyx Media, and at One by Many Org. They each have their own website, and there's also a link tree on my page. It's just like the easiest way for you to access each of these, and it's like hassle-free. So that's the best route.
I love it. I love it. Kings and queens, this conversation was so needed. Overcoming self-doubt through radical self-belief, understanding that we can change our mindset through subconscious programming. We talked about the different layers that are needed for this, the personal, the spiritual, the interpersonal, the social, and just for a closeout message that we just want to give you guys, because this type of information is so vast and it is so needed. I want you guys to understand the importance of honoring yourself and walking in your light. Be bold enough to be you. Be bold enough to take the time to nourish your spirit, to get to know who you are. It is a journey and a process. And we thank our divine leader, my sister, also Caribbean sister, Nastassia Aniceta, a phenomenal creative writer, poet, metaphysician, and serial entrepreneur, for blessing us with her presence. Okay? Just such a beautiful, intelligent queen. And what we're doing, honestly, I'm just letting you guys know, and I'm going to keep it a buck with you. I'm getting a little gangsta. Are doing something a little bit different. We're shifting the narrative. We are showcasing a different type of light in this world. And whatever your light is, don't be afraid to be you. Don't be afraid, and take that time and go for your dreams. You owe it to yourself to have your highest self. Don't you agree, Nastassia?
100%. You got to show up regardless of how you feel. And even when life shows out, which is something I'm learning as well, to just always try to stay in motion as we go through the motions, and to not disappear whenever life shows up, because that sometimes is the testament of how we're going to be stronger and build character as we journey on our way home.
Absolutely. This was such an important conversation. I want to shout out to all the kings and queens that was showing us love, just telling us to keep it up. We really
thank you.
Positive energy is very important. And once again, Motivational Moore leaders, what we're doing, we're highlighting influential visionaries who are impacting the world with their unique and divine gifts. And Nastassia Aniceta was our first guest. The series will continue in multiple platforms, from virtual conversations, film, to also events. And it's very important to surround yourself with visionaries and go-getters and people out there who understand the importance of higher consciousness. Once again, my name is Chardelle Moore, CEO and founder of Motivational Moore, a multimedia and communication company elevating the human consciousness. And thank you guys so much for joining us on our first Motivational Moore Leaders virtual conversation with the one and only brilliant and immaculate, the Seta. Thank you guys. Bless up. Bye, Sam.
Bye.
Bye, guys.